Awesome. Well, I'm glad we were able to do this.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Mo, who's the other half of Coffee and Sugar, shot y'all's song um, Undercurrents over to me. And he was like, dude, check out this band I just found. And I kind of dug it. And so that's why I reached out and I was like, I gotta talk to these guys and see what they're all about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, really, straightforward. I like to keep this nice and natural and organic. I just want to get to know you and the band and kind of where things started, came to be, and what brought y'all to making music. And, we'll talk about your music and where you guys grabbed your sound from and just kind of see where the conversation goes if that works for you.
Sure, that sounds great. So just a rundown of the band. First of all, my name is Greg Adams. I'm the lead singer of Tioga. I sing and play guitar, and I play keys live. And then I'm one of four. So there are three other members of the band. Derek Dieso plays guitar. Austin Paragus plays bass live. Henry Tyler Brooks plays drums live, but I make the distinction of live because we're all very ambidextrous in the studio. And post 2019, a lot of what we've done has been more in the studio. There were huge swaths of time in the last 24 months where we went from pre-pandemic playing out a lot to mainly just kind of honing our craft in the studio and working on projects that we would release, either live streaming over the internet or just strictly recorded material. But back to the origin of the band, we started in 2016. We all met in Philadelphia. Originally, I was playing shows. I was kind of just getting back into playing live music after maybe a 2 or 3 year hiatus. And I knew Derek, and I knew that Derek was booking shows. And he booked me kind of on a whim to open for a band that was touring at a show in Philly. And I mean, his words, not mine, but he was kind of blown away with what he heard. And after the show, he approached me immediately and was like, I had no idea that you had that in you. Like, we need to start a band. We need to get a project going. So originally it was he and I, and then he was in another band in Philly at the time called Poster Child, which is like kind of a pop punk outfit. And they were ending. So Austin, our bass player, got looped in and kind of just trusted Derek that it would be worth his time. So fast forward maybe 16 months of playing shows as a triplet, and asking whoever our friend was available that weekend to play drums, whatever hired gun we could get to rehearse with us and figure out a 30-minute set with. We went on tour, and our friend Henry, who was fronting his own bands in Philly, asked if he could come drum with us. And it was just an awesome week and a half of shows, and we really bonded. And by the end of it, he was our permanent drummer. So for the last 4 years, it's been the four of us. Like I said, everybody sings, everybody plays all the instruments.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really a really fun collaborative experience.
That's cool. No, and I didn't catch it, but what year did you guys say you kind of formed?
2016.
2016.
Yeah.
Cool. And so, obviously at the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020, everything shut down and you guys couldn't do anything. So you said that you went into the studio and just kind of worked your magic there and just kind of started creating y'all's sound. One of the things that listening to you guys over the last week or so, I've noticed is that a few a band really that comes to mind is Bad Sons when I listen to y'all's music, specifically, especially Undercurrents. I really get that vibe from Bad Sons. Would you say that, you know, that's part
Yeah,
so?
I appreciate that comparison. I think that Bad Sons is, kind of within the tree. It's within the sphere of
Mhm.
influence that I think we, kind of obviously pull from on a majority of our music.
Yeah.
I will say on the topic of undercurrents though, because it is the, you initially shared our track, and we really appreciate that. And I'm sure that we'll talk a little bit more about the track going forward,
Mhm.
but it was kind of like a major sonic departure for us, I think. I mean, as maybe from the outside, all of our stuff sounds a little more uh, homogenous than it does to somebody on the inside. But we say that Undercurrents is kind of like the one of the first big left turns we've made, and it was really
Mhm.
fun to make that song.
Yeah, no, I definitely could tell it has a different I don't want to say vibe. I think it's too generic, but um I could tell it has a different sound than the rest of the music that you guys, have out. And I don't know, I think what you guys did with it made it definitely stick.
Yeah,
Stick out to people like us that have never heard of you before,
right. Well, and that's interesting because I mean we were. I mean, I'll talk a little more about how the song got written and how the song was conceived, but one of the things that we really noticed was for what felt like the first time with a release schedule for our content and our music. It felt like we had a very specific, clear picture of who we thought would like the song or what the song, like what mood the song fit into, what vibe specifically the song fit into. And that's not
Mhm.
something, like you hear a lot of pop writers talk about, um, like Ty Verdes. I was listening to a podcast with him, and he was talking a lot about, or I picked up from him that a lot of his music is he goes in with, okay, this is going to be a song for this specific feeling, or this is going to be a song that captures this specific thing in the zeitgeist that I can capitalize on. And there's nothing wrong with that. Um,
Mhm.
but that's just nothing that we've ever done in our songwriting process. And that's not something that we do with Undercurrents, but it's kind of the closest we've ever gotten, because after we
Mhm.
wrote it, we were like, oh, we accidentally wrote this song that is very much in this like fall, autumn acoustic vibe thing. And, we reached out, we grassroots to a bunch of folks who had, a 400 follower autumn leaves playlist or whatever. And we're like, hey, we
Mhm.
think our song would fit. And we got, a great organic reception as a result of that. So it was really cool to do that.
That's unique. I've not. I guess as someone that doesn't actively make music, I guess I would have thought of, I guess, doing your own research on people's autumns and leaves playlist and reaching out and saying, "Hey, we think you might like." That's a I think a genius way to go about, inserting your music into just a playlist, right?
Yeah, I mean
Because
that's what we did. I mean, in the past, you kind of bang your head up against the wall, and you submit your music on Submit Hub or whatever, or any of the submission sites where you get people to listen to your music, and they tell you what your music is good for, or they tell you what the vibe of the song is. Like, not
yeah.
to use that general term, but um, with the strategy that we went with, it was like, okay, we are actively identifying what the vibe of this song is, or what the feeling of this song is,
Mhm.
or what environment we want to invoke when somebody listens to this, or what feeling we want to invoke when somebody listens to this. And when if you're on the money, like you can't, you can't like you can't jam a square peg into a round hole, but
Yeah.
if your peg is approximately round, you can kind of beat people to the punch and say, this is a subtle acoustic song. We really think it fits with autumn, blah, blah, blah. And then you
Mm-hmm.
build off of that and you say, okay, what are vibes around autumn? Like what are all those things that comprise
Mm-hmm.
that feeling for most people? And then you search for ways to connect with people through those, touchstones or keywords. And that's how we reached out to people with that song. And it was great. And we got more like genuine feedback on the song than we had in the past with all of our other releases, because we pounded the pavement so hard, trying to like connect with real people.
Yeah, no, I think that's solid marketing strategy. I think a lot of the times artists and bands have a hard time figuring out where to start
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to marketing their music, a single, whatever it may be, because you can put it out. But as you and I both know, if you don't have a plan involved of getting it in the hands of people, then it's not going to be heard, right? As with anything in business, right? Because you got the music, but you also have the business side of it too.
Yeah.
And was this the first time you guys had done that kind of strategy, or is that something you guys have practiced in the past?
Like I said, I think our strategy for reaching out to people was a little more proactive rather than reactive this time. It was, it was, instead of starting incredibly generic with the pitch and looking for, okay, anybody 18 to 25 is going to like this, so we'll just throw a bunch of money into this bottomless pit and like, we get 1 million impressions and 5 people like it. Like, instead of going big to small, we tried to start small first, so it's like, if somebody has a coffee playlist or whatever that they play when they're on their way, like from their house to Starbucks to their job or whatever, or like kids on the school bus and it's raining, so that's their school bus and it's raining playlist. Like that's what we went for. And the thing that I found about some of that listenership in that space is that they are searching for, or when they do search, it's incredibly specific playlist searches. And I'm sure that's the kind of thing that starts as like a joke among friends. Like I'm sure everybody has like a booty rocking, bootylicious playlist or something, and it's like a joke between you and 5 guys or whatever. But then like enough people start searching for those like funny key phrases, or enough people start having the same thought that you did, where it's like, oh, I want a walking in the rain in the city playlist. Like enough people have that thought where you just get like 2,000 followers on a playlist that's titled something like that. And then you as the artist are thinking that, and when you and when you think of what all those people who are seeking out playlists want, it's providential. It's like that is already there. Like you're filling a need that you kind of intuited would be there. So that's how I see it.
That's interesting. That's super interesting. So, one of the things that I like to bring up on our podcast is, things that are working for bands and artists and just musicians in general, from just getting your music out there, marketing. I think I've talked about with a lot of the artists and bands I brought on. So, ideally we have a lot more people over time listening to this podcast and trying to learn things from the artists that we bring on. So, with that being kind of in mind, what things have you guys tried in the past that just didn't work?
Well, I think just going back to what I said earlier, which is, trying to start at the very top, or like going into certain, watering holes or certain well-trod avenues of attack, where it's like, there's a reason that it's so easy, or it being so easy to access Submit Hub, or go into these places, like, because it's so easy, everybody's going to be doing that. So because everybody's doing that, and you're stopping your search for your listener so broad, so so early, you're going to get drowned out, because that's where the other 1 million people are starting and then stopping. So you can cast a wide net and have it not go very deep, and you get 50,000 impressions on an ad or something, and like I said, like 2 people click it,
Yeah.
because those spaces are so saturated. So like
Hmm.
I think it's a constant battle to it's a constant battle to figure out what channels people aren't using yet, but what businesses aren't marketing through yet. When I say business, I mean any
Yeah.
creatives, any artists, anybody who's trying to be heard, who's trying to be consumed as a creative. um, and then I think it's about getting very good at those channels before they become the well-trod channels. So like
Yeah.
I think TikTok in a big way, like the beginning of TikTok was something that a lot of bands are um, kind of reaping the benefits of, that jumped on very quickly. Like
Hmm.
there's a band, um, I hope I don't get their name wrong, but I think it's like Sub Radio or something like that. And uh, I mean, kudos to them. They do like a live stream on TikTok, and I'm pretty sure they've been doing live streams on TikTok since like since COVID started, basically.
Hmm.
And they've got like millions of listeners on Spotify, and it's because they figured out very early on how to get very good at TikTok, in my opinion.
Hmm.
And it's just
Yeah. We talked about that. I brought on a guy. He goes by like the stage name Cyan. His name's Cody Cook, and he's a pop producer as well. Very much on the Laney side of things, if
mhm,
you're familiar with them. And one of the things that we talked about was just being late to the game when it came to TikTok.
mhm.
That was, he's like, I missed the buck, and like I could jump in, but the pool is so deep
Yeah,
that the chances of being caught are slim. But I mean, it still happens, right? Like
yeah,
I've found bands still on TikTok. I'll just, for some reason, I guess the algorithm is finding out that I'm just into music, so it'll start sharing a bunch of like pop punk bands
uh,
and kind of post hardcore bands that are like 30-second clips of like their newest song, and it's a banger, and I'm just like, shit, okay, like I got to go check them out on Instagram and
yeah,
Spotify and check out the song, because people want, like you hear 30 seconds of something, you want to hear more of it if you like it. Like it's
yeah,
just human nature, right?
yeah. Well, and another thing I think about, like, um, you know, honing that, finding your space and honing your strategy, I think is, you know, you can have your creative hat on, you can have your content producer hat on, and always
Hmm.
be thinking about, okay, how am I going to get XYZ to like and subscribe or follow my channel or listen to my song or download this or that.
Hmm.
And you do whatever the generic thing to do is, and it doesn't go anywhere. But I think what kind of tightens the learning curve is always thinking about, always being conscious about what works and doesn't work on you when you're consuming. So like what I mean by that is, if I see a TikTok and I'm scrolling and I identify in the first half a second that it's a band and they haven't captured my attention in the first half a second, and I scroll by,
Yeah.
something might click on where I'm like, wait, I need to analyze why I, as a consumer of that content, scrolled by without watching in half a second. And I'll go back and I'll deliberately watch what I initially classified as an uninteresting TikTok and say, okay, what made that uninteresting to me? And it helps me say, okay, this is what I'm not going to do if I want to
Hmm.
attract people. Or like, so like you have to be building out that side of it too. Like you have to understand what's not working when you're the one consuming content, and then you have to be creative on, okay, what could possibly work that other people aren't doing at this point, or like what haven't I seen yet.
Hmm.
You have to remember all the times that you've seen something and been bored with it.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're just going to do those same things because you're on autopilot, because you're not thinking about it like a consumer.
Yeah. That's a great point, honestly, because we're all creatures of habit, right? Like we can pull up
Yep.
Instagram, and unless something that we see on Instagram or TikTok catches our eye within that first few seconds, we're just going to keep going. I mean, I literally, I'll sit there. I'm not on TikTok a lot. Like sometimes I'll go on if I'm trying to do a little bit of research and whatnot. I say
Mm-hmm.
research, but like if anything pops out to me,
Yeah.
but I'll sit there and watch my wife on TikTok, and she does that. she'll play for like the first 3 seconds. If it doesn't catch her attention, she swipes. I watch her do that all the time. And as the consumer, right, like you can teach yourself a lot, like you were saying, about why didn't that work. And I've never thought about that. I think that's fantastic. When it comes to what we do, right, we're a podcast, but we're also just in a sense a music outlet, right? We have a podcast. That's the thing that people can kind of digest in a sense. The Instagram is like, hey, here's a new song, right? Like, and in the beginning, what we were doing was actually putting the music on Instagram, and then Instagram did not like that. And they started removing our posts and all this stuff. And they like blocked our entire Instagram for like a week, and we couldn't access it. So like, what we thought we were doing is like sharing the music with you like right away was going to grab people's attention. And it did. It worked for a while. And then obviously it's copyright and a copyrighted material. And we, kind of got the hammer from Instagram. And so we had to stop doing that. So, like any business adventure, musician, band, you have to pivot when those things are like, oh, got to stop doing that, or that didn't work, or whatever it was. And, we have been trying to, I don't want to say I'm the mastermind, because I'm definitely not, but myself and Morgan, who, goes by Mo, we just always are just bouncing ideas off each other. Like, do we think this would stick? Like, will that work? Like, will people want to hear that or see that, or will this pop out to them? We're doing the same thing like you guys are doing, right? It's business, it's marketing. And, for example, like our logo is like a brutal death metal logo. has nothing to do with the fact that we love death metal music. I mean, I don't mind it, but like, we share pop, we share pop punk, we share, an array of music. And, but that fun fact, we launched the new logo. And at first it was only supposed to be like, a couple week thing, and we're going to change it back to our original logo. Well, it garnered such a cool, like, I don't know, attraction or like reaction, that people are like, what is this? Like, what is this coffee and sugar death metal logo with the coffee cup thing? Like, what is it? And when we dropped the merch that following Friday, it was the best merch drop that we've ever had.
Oh yeah.
It just worked, but it was like, we had the idea of like, let's turn the coffee and sugar brand into a death metal logo and see what happens. And we had no idea if it was going to work. We paid good money for that logo too. And we were like, well, let's hope we recoup that money with the merch sales. And as of like, I think 2 days ago, we matched what we spent. And we've made, so I'm just like, that's marketing. It's like trying something that may or may not work. And if it doesn't, cool, we know not to do it again. But if it does, it's like, all right, well, we'll stick with it.
Yeah, no, that's funny. I don't know if you're familiar with the brand Liquid Death.
Yeah.
Okay, the canned water brand, but that's kind of a similar tactic, but it certainly works for them. That's awesome. No, I got to be honest. When I saw I was looking at the logo right before we got on, and I was like, oh my God, do these guys think that we're like a metal band or something? I was afraid. I kind of scrolled through your feed. I was like, what am I getting into here? But no,
that's fair. I think people are also confused, but but we
to your point, no. That I think that confusion though is, whether or not it's intentional, like the fact that it's kind of tongue in cheek, it creates that, that question is enough to capture somebody. It's the way Liquid Death works. It's like, if I don't know that Liquid Death is canned water and I see this can of something that says Liquid Death, I'm like, what is that? And then I buy it and I try it and I open it. That's pretty much, what you're doing. It's like, wait, what is this? Why does it say coffee and sugar, but it's a death metal, pile of sticks logo?
And it has nothing to do with coffee and coffee, like has nothing to do with coffee. And what's so funny is, I mean, I'm not trying to make this about coffee and sugar, but like when we were creating the name, Morgan and myself, we were going back and forth, and we're just throwing out things that just were like really generic kind of thing. And then in college, my nickname was Coffee. My
Mhm.
last name's Kaufman. It just was
Mhm.
easier for people to remember. So they always called
Mhm.
me Coffee. Morgan's last name is Sugars. And so, but it's spelled
Yep.
SHU. And so I don't know who threw it out first, but like one of us threw it out and we're just like, wait a minute. That's perfect.
Lightning
And
struck.
then it just, yeah, it stuck. And a lot of people sometimes think that we sell coffee, which is not the case. But when they see that name and then they see our logo and then they go to our profile, it's like boom, boom, boom.
Mhm.
The confusion, like you said. I mean, I never thought about it that way, but it makes sense. And we actually did a promotional post on Instagram for the merch, the highest reaching ad that we've ever ran. And I think, and you can track how many people tapped it,
Mhm.
you know, tons. I
Oh
was just
yeah.
like, great,
Mhm.
awesome. And I don't know if any of those random people bought any of the merch, but they definitely went and looked at
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, and I mean, what you're describing is kind of, it's a covert way to get people, not to trick people, but like we said before, if you've got half a second of attention as a consumer, and
Mhm.
you're making a split decision, like if I'm a consumer, I might not be interested in music podcast, or I might not think that I'm interested in music podcast, but I see this shirt and I'm like, oh, I do like ironic merch, like thinking that it's something for like a
Mhm.
coffee brand or something that happens to have a death metal logo. But then you
Yeah.
click in, and that is the beginning of the funnel. You click
Mhm.
in and it's like, oh wait, what is this? And then you have to investigate what it is. And now that I've taken more than half a second to investigate what your brand is, I'm more interested, or I have
Right.
interest that I didn't know I would have because I
Mhm.
wasn't willing to take the chance until I saw something and thought it was something else.
Right. Because everything has to be worth your time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't matter what it is. If you feel like it's not worth your time, then you're not gonna. I mean, how many times has someone sent you a song or a band to listen to and you've put it off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I've done that all. And as of someone that runs a music publication outlet, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
I mean, people send me music all the time that I'm like, I'm stuck on this. I'll get to that whenever I have some time, or when I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's worth my time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So no, that's definitely facts. Definitely facts. And I mean, human nature is just continuing to evolve, especially with social media.
Yeah.
I mean, I am interested to see what the next big thing is, right? Like it's probably already happening and it's probably getting like very low level attention, like TikTok, right? TikTok was called Musically before it was TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
And my little sister in middle school was creating all these Musically dances and stuff like that, and she was super into it, but like it had no mainstream
Yeah.
popularity until for some reason it got changed to TikTok, and then
Mm-hmm.
they added more features that gave people, really non-creative people, the ability to be creative,
Mm-hmm.
like it was interesting, and then all of a sudden it's one of the biggest apps.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, without, because I would have never, I guess I would have never have foreseen TikTok, although it is kind of just a retread. It's a souped up retread of Vine,
Hmm.
but like if you had a water gun to my head and you asked me what I thought the future was of social media and ways creatives would market at those watering holes to people, like I think the next frontier and something that is kind of already happening is, I mean, I don't want to sound like a tech bro, but I think it's the metaverse. I think it's
Yeah.
interacting with, and it doesn't have to be like the Facebook metaverse. It doesn't have to be whatever, DAO metaverse. It can just be like the way artists, at least bigger artists, are able to have live events in games. So
Hmm.
like Fortnite, I think Fortnite's had Travis Scott. Fortnite's had
Marshmallow.
Marshmallow. I don't know if they've had anybody else, But that's like an incredibly novel, especially during the pandemic, that's an incredibly novel way to meet, consumers where they are and have a virtual concert.
Yeah.
There's another band from Philly. They were featured on NPR for this. They actually did a concert on Minecraft, where they had a Minecraft server.
I think I heard about that.
The band is called, they've had two names. The band's called Courier Club. And they had this like festival basically, and they built a stage in Minecraft, and they gave it was like an open server, and they had like 150 people in the server, and they just like, I don't know how they did it, but they played their music either through their microphone or whatever, like one live player just communicated to the entire lobby the music. And it's like it's silly, but I think that maybe that's the future of creatives having something to accompany what they hope the product is, which is the music, in a package that someone will more readily consume. I think that's where we're going.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And I think a lot of people aren't on it right now because either one, they don't have let's just say the metaverse, right? They don't have an Oculus. It costs money to kind of an investment to be able to experience that. And as well as just the knowledge of how to do it, right? How to effectively be in the metaverse, or however you want to say it.
I mean, the other thing that you're seeing a lot is artists trying to get into like the NFT space. I forget who did it recently, but
I know what you're talking about.
I don't know if it's well. So there's a couple of projects, but one of them, I don't know if it's like DistroKid or something. They were doing an NFT project where they maybe had like 10,000 tokens or something like that, and then they were gonna attach like 10,000 indie artists or something to each of the NFTs. So like you would have whatever exclusive copy of whatever indie band material you wanted. So I mean that's a potential thing. And I know Kings of Leon like sold their most recent album or something as an NFT. You can go back and forth on what the real like utility of that technology is. I'm kind of dubious, but like just on the front that it's a gimmick to attract people, or like another way that you can offer something that you wouldn't be able to with just your music alone. I think it's a pretty exciting concept.
You hear about that company that was selling the album arts as NFTs, and the bands and the artists didn't know that it was happening?
No.
Yeah, it was a whole thing on Twitter. I forgot what the company was, but the guy that runs it apparently was part of the Spotify like marketing team or something like that, and split off and created this company where he essentially was taking the high res images of these album arts and selling them as an NFT. And bands and the musicians had no idea. And then it just like it crashed their website because people were flocking to it and like reporting it and all this stuff. And they put out a post on Twitter that said, "It seems like we have rubbed some people the wrong way. We'll be back momentarily," or something like that.
And they never returned.
Yeah. And I mean, they're still doing whatever, but yeah. So no, I think you're right. I think metaverse NFTs being kind of like a hot pad of unknowing where it's going to go could be an avenue for artists to get out there. And
to a larger point, that kind of ties back to what we said a couple of minutes ago, which is, starting out on a less trod path usually gives you greater success to be one of the first to break out on that path. So like with TikTok, I mean, because TikTok is 24 months old or whatever, and all of the tropes for bands or musicians or producers have kind of been established, where like so many memes or viral trends have been done within that music space that it feels played out. But hindsight is 2020. When TikTok was not popular yet, there were people who were struggling and were like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, what am I supposed to do other than play 30 seconds of my song? Like how can I stand out? So, I think we look at NFTs and we look at the metaverse the way maybe we would have looked at TikTok in 2018 or 2019, whenever it was musically, and said, what am I supposed to do with this? But the thing is, like, I think, to fortune favors the bold, so to say, to borrow a phrase, but like, you have to take a risk, or you have to put in the work of being a pioneer in that space to establish what the tropes are going to be, to figure out where the value is creatively in attaching your work to an NFT, or figuring out how to, have a concert on Minecraft. It's like somebody has to do it first. And like, those people who did it, maybe they had 100 ideas that like wouldn't have been able to be executed, or just didn't work. But at one time, now they are the first person who's done that, or they're one of the first people who've done that. I think they reap the benefits of that.
Well, I was going to say, someone's going to figure it out.
Yeah.
So regardless of who it is, someone's going to figure it out. Just like, Marshmello doing a concert in Fortnite, and then the concert in Minecraft. Someone's going to do it. And then follows the people that once you see the success of it, and you want people to see things and have their eyes on things.
Yeah.
What Marshmello did with Fortnite was kind of iconic, right? Like something that's never been done before live in a game. I just think that's, that was super cool. And I remember tuning into it, and I don't even play Fortnite. I was a big fan of Marshmello, so I wanted to see this, and it was cool. I mean, it grabbed the attention of all the younger kids that played Fortnite, as well as the, I don't know, mid-20s, people that have been following Marshmello or whatever, and enjoy his music, to gather in one place and consume. So no, it's so true though. You have so many ways to go about marketing your brand, your music, that has been done before, right? And repeating it over and over isn't going to separate you from the rest, I talk with bands, on the show, and we talk about marketing and what they do to put themselves out there, right? Half of marketing is also knowing the right people, and people that can take what you're creating and put it in the spotlight for more people to see it, right? That's networking is a whole other thing, right? I interviewed a band called In Dying Arms, whose episode just went live this week. And we talked about, they've been a band for 16 years. They're so well connected in the industry, and that's how they've been able to really just continue to go, because they have the fans and the connections of people that continue to support them that are in the music industry, right? So alongside marketing, networking, and the people that you guys as a band connect with will help you even go even further, And I don't know, are you guys managed currently, or is it you guys managing yourselves?
We are managed. We're managed by somebody that we've known for a long time, and have a lot of trust in, and she's a close collaborator with us. But I will say, to your point about just networking, in the Philly scene, we felt like for a long time we were kind of always the outsider looking in, and a lot of that was self-inflicted. I think a lot of it was just not knowing how, and that's such a weird thing to say, because we all look at ourselves as very social people, and we we consider ourselves all very easy to get along with. So the fact that I would say that we didn't have a lot of like band friends for a while, or like friend bands, brother bands, sister bands, whatever, was kind of a disconnect. And it's weird, but it took the pandemic and not being in that live space to kind of, for some reason, counterintuitively, start that networking, and kind of lit a fire to branch out and, actively try to befriend other bands in our immediate scene and also New York. So we're split between Philadelphia and the suburbs outside of Philadelphia and New York. And kind of, I mean, when we weren't able to play live, we started doing other things. So like I kind of had a little version of what we're doing right now, but I was on the other side. Every week I interviewed a different act about a song, and I played through it, and I asked them about their production. I asked them about the songwriting. I asked them about how everything came together. And, I was just meeting a new act every week, and we still talk to a lot of those bands, and like we play shows with those bands now. So it's something that is really important. And, you can kind of convince yourself that all the other things are important, and they are to an extent, but like, just like what you said, like at the end of the day, not many bands get by and make it all the way just on grassroots engagement and just solely on fan engagement and like underswell of fan engagement. You need in order to access other groups of people, you need somebody to introduce you to those other groups of people, and you usually do that live, and you usually get in with those people who introduce you by making friends with them. So
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. I plug these guys all the time because they're some of my best friends. I've known them for over 10 years now. There's a band in the post-hardcore scene called Archetypes Collide who I can now finally talk about it publicly. They just signed to Fearless Records this past Friday. Released a new song with the announcement. It was so awesome to just see and watch their success from 2014 when they started to where they're at now in 2022, about to go on their first tour next month across the country. And then, festivals all across the country that they're getting added to, as well as more tours in the fall. Like it's just been crazy to watch their success. And, they just did an interview with Danny Wimmer Presents on Twitch.
Okay.
And go watch it. It was a fantastic interview. It happened on Monday. And they actually did like a 3-song pre-recorded live set that they shared. It was dope. But the point of bringing that up is, being kind of in the know of their journey as a band and what they've done to kind of get to where they are. And they're the only band I know that I have any sort of context to share around that is, some of the advice that they were giving some of the bands in the chat was like, don't, and you mentioned it kind of earlier, it's like, don't let the outside forces, the outside thoughts of people keep you, or looking at people and wanting to be where they're at, like from focusing on what y'all's, your craft is and what you are doing as a band, right? Because what you're doing is not going to be like them, because you are unique. And I think they kind of talked about the people as well that they connected with over time. So they're currently managed, and they started becoming managed back in 2020 by Thomas Gutchess. He is the manager for a band called Beartooth, if you've heard of them. And he is so well connected in the industry. And the reason that they met Thomas was because they actually put together a ton of money to go record up in Ohio with Ashi Bishar. Oh, I say Ashi, but Nick Ingram, who helps kind of record some stuff for Beartooth and is really close with them, but also Ashi Bishar to help write some new songs. So Nick and Ashi of Beartooth were there when they were writing these like 4 or 5 songs in the studio. And really what they did to get even that opportunity was, I think it was Ashi does like a thing on Twitch, like a live stream where he asked bands to submit a song, and whoever wins a like, an opportunity to pay and go record with Nick in Ohio and with him as well. And they submitted a song they just put out, and it hit. And so they brought him up. And anyways, because of that writing session, that recording session, they met Thomas, or Ashi mentioned to Thomas, his manager, hey, you should really check these guys out. They have some really cool material that is being written right now. And, one thing led to another, and Thomas brought them on as a band that he was going to manage. And so they had the backing of Thomas, as well as the backing of, Ashi and Beartooth, and then Nick, who is a big producer up there in Ohio. And then it just kind of it didn't take off yet, but the pieces were being put in place for them to get their music out there. And the way that they went about releasing all of these songs that they recorded, I thought was honestly genius, right? Like, singles are where it's at. And I think what you guys did with Undercurrents was a fantastic idea, right? Like, you have your, I see you guys have an album from 2018, you have a few EPs out there. But singles every basically 2 or 3 months is what, over the course of those 4 songs, is what put them on the map and got them to a point where they were upwards of 50 to 60,000 monthly listeners on Spotify.
Yeah.
And back to the networking, like, they took this step, this kind of risk of, we're going to put a bunch of money together, go record, see what happens. But they did it because they wanted to do it, and they were just going to see what happens, right? It's like taking risk is super important with the band, right? But I don't know. I have like a connection to them, so I'm just like super hyped for them and watching them become who they are, and being signed this past Friday to Fearless and all of the things, right? Oh, there goes my camera. One sec.
I hear you.
Yeah. I have an external camera that likes to turn off in the middle of streams, but yeah. So Thomas being their manager, that is what really set them on that path to success. And you find that one person that will get your music in the hands of someone else is, the possibilities, what I mean? And another thing that was mentioned on that interview was just like, be a good person. Be nice. Being nice goes a long way. And I feel like it's very easy to kind of get an ego when you're doing some really cool stuff. Making some big moves. And these guys have continued to just, keep their nose down and work hard. And they're some of my best friends, and I'll be the first to tell you, I don't think any of them have that kind of ego. And I feel like they're going to go pretty far, just from being good people, be nice, and be an advocate for the music industry. Because I feel like there's so many people out there that aren't, Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, that reminds me of something, and I don't think he's the one who coined the phrase, but my dad said something to me once. He said, be nice to the people that you meet on the way up, because you're going to see them again on the way down.
That's a very fair point. Very fair point. Don't burn the bridges on the way up the ladder.
Exactly. Well, and because you never know who's going to be in what position, or what shoe's going to be on what foot, so you have to just be nice. I agree.
No, I again, I don't know if you have been able to watch people kind of come up in the scene, but it's fun to just kind of sit in the back seat and just watch it happen.
There's two bands right now. There's one band, they just played on well, I should say it's a solo project, so he just played on Seth Meyers, but Del Water Gap, I don't know if you're familiar, but they had a big indie album hit this year, and they're kind of starting to blow up nationally. But I saw them when they were just a band from Jersey. I saw them at Milk Boy in 2017. It's like a room for 50 people. And then in the same room, I saw another band from Toronto who they were on tour with our other friends called Valley, and I saw them in the same room with about the same amount of people, and now they're like selling out like 2,000 cap rooms all over the country. So, and they've got like
Awesome.
1 million listeners on Spotify. So yeah, it's cool. Like when you're emotionally invested in somebody's journey, and I will not profess to know either of those people personally, the way that it sounds like you have friends. So I'm sure it's even sweeter for you than it is for me. But like, just even as somebody who saw both of those bands with like 40 other people on a Thursday night in a small venue, you
Yeah.
get emotionally invested at the ground level. Because of that, like, you're kind of a fan for as long as that career arcs, because you're like, oh, I want to see where this goes, because it's so rare to encounter a band that makes those several jumps in that many years or whatever. So
Right.
it's definitely
Yeah.
cool.
No, and it's, you feel like a little piece of what you've done to help just supporting them has helped get them to, where they're at, right?
Right. It's like getting in on a stock very early. Like buying Google at $10.
That's a great analogy.
Uh-huh.
Oh, rip the stock market.
Yeah.
No, I think you're absolutely right. It's, they started out and their first EP. It's so funny. We always joke about it. And I say joke. I mean, it was decently produced. It was decently written, right? They'd probably hate me for saying that, but they probably agree actually. But it's just, we kind of go back to it sometimes, and we have a group chat that we're all in on, like Facebook, and we'll just throw out the lyrics sometimes, and they're just like, face palm, because it's, as the band, I can only imagine, it's like you hear those songs so much, as you're writing, as you're, I'm sure they have a different feeling towards, obviously they have a different feeling towards it than the people that listen to it do,
Right. Well, I was just going to say, like, it's kind of a good sign when you can look back at something and like either cringe at it or, not feel as like, oh, this is the greatest thing I've ever done. When you look at it, because I think that implies that since you wrote that, or since you performed that piece of music, you've grown as an artist, or you put something out that's, that stands taller than that last thing. And we've pulled stuff down off Spotify in the past. I think we had 2 EPs from like the early stages of the band that aren't online anymore. And a lot of that stuff, it's like, when we were making it, it felt like lightning in a bottle. But like, I wouldn't probably play any of those songs live anymore. But it's kind of one of those things where like you have to appreciate it as, okay, this was the stepping stone that got me to doing what I'm doing now. Like I had to write that stuff to be able to write what I'm writing now, to be able to work on what I'm working on now. So, that's how I look at it. I don't look at anything with regret. I look at it as, that was a moment of growth for me, and this is what I'm doing differently in my artistry, or this is where I am now as a creative. And so that's why I can look back on it and appreciate it.
Yeah. And, like I said, I was listening to your all's music over the last week or so, just kind of getting prepped and ready to chat with you. And, my buddies went through 3 phases of music, of sound. I feel like it was always in the post-hardcore genre, but just their sound developed from their first EP to their second EP to what they just recorded, these like last 5 singles that, may or may not make it on their album, but these last 5 singles are different than the second, but they're both 2 really good. I mean, their first EP to their second was a really big jump to where production and writing was just awesome, like contrast between what they did and what they were doing. And then this next bunch, what I think I remember them saying was, the music they wrote for their second EP was written to just listen to, a good listen. This like third set of songs was written to play, to perform, because there's a difference between writing a song that just is a feel good, sound good song, and a different and then writing a song or a group of songs that you're like, I cannot wait to play these live.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel they mentioned, is that they were really trying to focus on creating songs that they were just stoked to play live because, you know, as an artist, you got to play those songs live if you're going to be playing shows, if that's the goal, right? Like you can be a studio band and that be it. Like there's a ton of studio bands out there that are doing very well. But if you want to be a touring musician and play shows, like you have to write to play. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's been the biggest struggle because we are working on, I'm looking at my whiteboard right now. I'm looking at like the gaps in the track list. But while we were putting out music, we put out like a song, at least one song every year in the last 3 years. But that entire time, while we were writing one-off singles, you know, we did Suffer, Break Me In, Bad Things, Imaginary Friend, and now Undercurrents, and we've got 2 more that we're going to put out as singles. For the last 4 years, I've been writing our follow-up to our 2018 full length. So awesome. And like the whole time, just the struggle of like, you know, is this a song for the album? Is this a single? And delegating like that. And that's been quite a creative process. But yeah, no, to your point about live music versus recorded music, like I have to remind myself when we weren't playing out live for 24 months or whatever it was, and I wanted to have, you know, 6 different guitar parts and, you know, 4 different synth pads and parts, all this drum stuff that like a human being can't play. It's like, we have to rein this back. Like we have to sound like a live band, or we have to sound more like a live band because this is how we're going to represent ourselves when we're playing live again. And that's something that like, that's something that the other members of the band, especially Henry, kind of reins me on, like, let's play through these songs before we get to recording them so that like they actually do see some live band synergy before we go to lay them down for the final take. But
yeah, there's a song that my buddies put out called Forgive Me. It's probably one of my favorite songs that they've ever written. And their new stuff is great, but I just have like an affinity to this song. And the thing about it is that it starts off super soft. And then like comes in with a heavy breakdown, and it's just like pulls the heartstrings kind of song. And the drummer hates playing it, hates doing it live, and I mess with him all the time because I'm like, oh yeah, you know, we'll be talking about the music in the chat and be like, yeah, dude, forgive me all day every day. And they'll put out like posts like, you know, what would be your ideal 5-song set? And I'd be like, forgive me, forgive me, forgive me, forgive me. But the drummer hates it because there's nothing for him to do for like a minute and a half of the song. He's just sitting there, you know? So it's like, it's almost, you have to end with that or start with it kind of song live, you know?
Yeah. Or you have to invent or reinvent the way that you play those songs. So looping back to Undercurrents, like, you know, that song is on the record, it's an acoustic guitar and like a cajon and some ambient stuff that we sampled like from our own ambient recordings. But when we do it live, you know, we're not breaking out the cajon and an acoustic guitar in a set that's been synths and electric guitars on a full drum kit. So like we basically, you know, we figured out a live version of that song that's electric, and it's, you know, it's cool. It's cool to be able to offer that as a musician to a you know, a listener base to say like, you know, you liked this version of the song on the record, come out and see us live because it's totally different. Like that's just another like reason to get people to come to shows. I think.
Right. No, for sure. I think that adds to, you're right, making performances even more exciting because, you know, the band Switchfoot, you've heard of them.
Yep.
I mean, listening to albums, great, you know, huge Switchfoot fan. I went and saw him live for the first time. Pre-pandemic. It might have been like mid 2019. And oh my goodness. I mean, it's something about the guitars and how they play them and how they draw these 3 or 4 minute songs out into like 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Is they do such a great job. And like, that's what makes going and seeing Switchfoot like an amazing experience, you know?
Yeah.
And you know, I'm sure they could take Forgive Me and spice it up in the beginning and give the drummer something to do. But it's, you know, it's live versus studio, it's different, you know. It's
Yeah.
And then writing for studio and writing for live music is also different. So, you know, if I could pass on that knowledge of what they've experienced, is like being able to write for live performances to where you know you're going to crush it, and it's something that every band member can be excited about
Yeah.
playing, that will go a long way. Because I mean, if you guys, you know, everyone has a choice when you're a musician. You doing it for fun, or do you want to make being a musician something that supports you for the rest of your life? You
Right.
know, if you're going the rest of your life route, then you're going to be playing those songs for a long time. And something they mentioned on that interview on Monday was, do you know the band Motionless in White?
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of them? Well,
Yep.
one of their former members who was in the band for like 10 years is on this live Twitch stream every Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Or basically he's just part of the show. And he was talking about how, you know, on their first album they ever put, I think it was Abigail. He said that we played for 8 years, and he's like, I got so tired of playing that song because it was always going to be one of the last songs we played, because it was one of the biggest ones that we ever wrote. But he's like, just he gave advice to my buddies, like, just be prepared to play these songs for 5, 8, 10 years moving forward. So
Yeah.
just when you're writing music, just remember that. And I think that's why I feel like Switchfoot is such a great band to see live, because I feel like all of their songs are written to play live, and they love playing all those songs live.
Yeah.
And that's why I think their performances are so great.
I think something that extends the life of a song like that, and I mean, you know, I would love to be in that position where I was ever tired of one of my songs, but I think that the trick to that, and something that there are a couple of bands that I can name that do it well, that I've seen live. The trick to keeping things fresh is doing different things to the song live. So like, I know, like, I mean, I'll just throw out a super generic example, but like the Foo Fighters, they'll do a version of Monkey Wrench where they do like a breakdown at the end. Like, instead of the ending, it's just like, it's basically a punk breakdown. I've begrudgingly been to a couple of Panic at the Disco concerts in my life. And,
Begrudgingly.
well, my wife has dragged me to them, but I leave very satisfied, because, you know, he will do things to his earlier catalog that just sound so different live, and he's like mixing things up and keeping things interesting. And I think that's probably one of the keys to longevity as well in that regard. Now, I mean, like, if your Journey and it's Don't Stop Believing, there's not much you can do to that song, but like, you know, all of your other like classics, you can always pull different stuff in, or create different moments in the live show that keep the audience on their toes, and then keep it more interesting for you, because they're in a sense reacting to a new performance of old material.
Right. And I think another one we can throw in that list is John Mayer.
Yeah.
I mean, what he does in his life, and I've never seen him live. I had the opportunity, I bought the tickets, and then unfortunately I was traveling for work and I just couldn't go. But John Mayer's live albums, if you've heard them, it's like every song has a different twist to it. And it's just like, damn, this is better than the original, you know? Like, I think it was like live in Madison Square Garden or something like that he had an album out, and it was just fantastic.
Yeah.
So no, this has been a great conversation. I really enjoyed this. I like digging into the, you know, I don't want to be a standard interview asking you like all the standard questions. And I like it to be a conversation about like things that you guys experience and that we experience, right? Like, we're both a business. End of the day, we're both business. We have a passion for what we do, and we want people to experience it and see it and listen to it. And you know, having conversations like this, I feel like, is what keeps people pulled in. So no, this has been great.
Absolutely.
I hope you've enjoyed this.
I did. It was great to meet you, and hopefully we'll keep in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have 2 final questions for you though.
Okay.
And we ask these at the end every single time.
Yep.
The first one is there anything that you want to let the people listening or will listen know about Tioga and future things that you can share if you'd like, and obviously where they can find you on socials and everything like that.
Sure. So Tioga is Tioga the band on Instagram and TikTok. It's spelled Tioga and then the band, and you'll find us pretty easily. We're putting out, like I said, 2 more songs in the year 2022, and then we will be gearing up for our second full length, which I think we're going to put out in the form of 3 5-song or 4-song EPs. And it's, up to this point, my favorite thing I've done. It's just, I've spent so much time thinking about the lyrics and how everything connects sonically and lyrically and thematically, and just also making it accessible and fun in a way that if you're not reading into the lyrics, you can still enjoy the music. So really, really excited to put that out. And, just like you said, hoping to keep people captivated and sticking with us all the way through that. And again, thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's awesome. Tioga the band on Instagram and TikTok, and I'm assuming Facebook and Twitter if you're on Twitter. Perfect. And then final question is, how do you like your coffee?
So my wife, I'll just say I make dinner most nights, but she's the earlier riser. So she makes us coffee, and I'm pretty spoiled. Sometimes I get a latte in the morning, depending on what she's feeling. Sometimes I get like a shaken espresso iced latte. Sometimes it's, black with 1 sugar and a splash of half and half. So I get the full gamut thrown at me, whatever my personal barista is feeling. But if it's plain coffee, I take 1 cream, 1 sugar.
There you go. Awesome. So I am a very simple person. I just so my nickname was Coffee for the last however many years. And I didn't drink coffee. I really only started drinking coffee like this past year. So I'm pretty new to the game, and I don't necessarily like the taste of coffee, to be honest with you. I can't drink it black. It just tastes like garbage to me. And so I learned that there's creamer with sugar in it that makes it not taste like coffee, which I'm like, oh. And then I experienced the Starbucks pumpkin spice latte, which was absolutely fantastic. And so I feel like I'm really kind of, I don't know, maybe I'm just a baby into it, but I feel like I'm trying to grasp trying new things in coffee. And so for Valentine's Day here, a couple weeks ago, because I make coffee in the pot and then do all the things. So sometimes it's a pain in the butt, and I'm a man of convenience. And so my wife got me a gift, and it's this bad boy right here.
Oh yeah.
Got me a Keurig.
Wow.
And so I'll just pop a thing in there, and I got my little thing with water, and I can fill it up. And then I got a mini fridge here to the right of my desk. So I got my creamer in there. I don't have to leave the office. I just wake up in the morning, I work from home. So I walk across the hall to work, and I make my coffee, and it is, I'm loving it. I've already gone through like however many K-cups, 22 K-cups in like a week and a half. It's been great. Yeah. So that's, I like probably 75% coffee, 25% creamer. Maybe 85, 15.
That's okay.
I don't know.
No shame in that.
It depends on the day, but yeah. So again, man, I appreciate you coming on. I'm glad that you didn't think that we were just into death metal when you were browsing our profile. We do have a mix of different artists and genres on there, and again, it caught the eye, and it got you confused. So I think it worked.
Absolutely, it did. Absolutely, it did. And we'll stay tuned.
Awesome. Well, hey, I appreciate it. You have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you on Instagram.
You too, man. Take care.
Hey, take care. Bye.
Bye.